Hello everybody, we are still working on this game and we are almost finished. And in this tutorial I'm going to add music to all of this and I'm going to add some variation for the obstacles, so the game is less monotonous. Let's start with the first one, to add audio to our game. Audio is always added with an AudioStreamPlayer. And there are three different kinds of AudioStreamPlayers. We have the plain AudioStreamPlayer, then we have an AudioStreamPlayer 2D, and we have an AudioStreamPlayer 3D. All three do the same thing, they play music. The difference though is that 2D and 3D take positional information into account as well, which basically just means that the further the sound is, the less loud it becomes. But in our case, this one doesn't matter at all. We only need the plain AudioStreamPlayer node so that our sound has the same volume no matter where it is. And that's pretty much it. Let's add all of this now. So I'm back here in my Godot game, and the first thing you should see is on the bottom left we have audio now. We have a jump sound and we have a music file. Both are in the OGG format. And let's start by adding the jump sound. And this is going to be on the player. So I go to our player scene and I am going to add an AudioStreamPlayer. And all we really need to do is to take the jump sound and move it into the stream part. And if I click on it, you should hear the sound played once. Now we need to start this whenever the player is jumping, which we can do in the code quite easily. In this line here, we get the player to jump. So all we need is to target the AudioStreamPlayer and just tell it to play. And that's really all it is. So if I run the game now, I jump, we have good to go. We can hear our jumping cat. Cool. And now we want our background music to play for all of this. And I want it to play across all the scenes, so I'm going to add this to the global scene. So just like before, I am going to add the AudioStreamPlayer to the main node, global in this case, and I'm going to drag the music into it. And this one should be auto-playing and want to play right now. And if you click on playing here, it is actually going to preview in the editor as well, which can very fast get very, very annoying. But by itself, if we run the game now, we can hear the sound in the background, and this is always going to play. Which is fine, so I just leave it as it is right now. But I'm going to switch it off while I'm recording it, so it doesn't get too annoying. But alright, now we have music for our game. So the other thing I want to work on for this tutorial is that our obstacles are very boring right now. They always have the same speed and they always spawn at the same time, which is 2 seconds. And I want to add some variation for this one. We could either change when they spawn or we can change their speed. And let's just update both. So here I'm back in the code for my level scene, and this piece of code spawns the obstacles. And all we really need to do is whenever this timer triggers the signal, we want to target the timer itself and change its wait time. So this thing here, so let's say next time when this one is triggered, we only want to wait 1 second, or we want to wait 4 seconds, or maybe 3 seconds. So we can just change it here. Whenever it runs, it changes itself. And now we need to add a random number generator here. We saw rand_i earlier, but that only gives us one number. Instead, we want to get a number within a certain range. And Godot has a very nice function for this. It's called rand_range. And now we just need to pick a number from and to, just like it says below. And go from 1 to 3, let's say. So that a number could be 1 up to 3, which gives us quite a bit more variation for the wait time. So let me run the game now. And this might be a little bit difficult to see. So we have an obstacle here. This one has the same distance. Now we have, I think, a slightly greater distance. And yeah, now we have a much greater distance. And yeah, so you could adjust this. And yeah, and those two were much closer together as well. Now the game already becomes a bit harder because it's less predictable when the obstacles are coming in. All right, this is working. Now for the next one, I want to go to the obstacles. And their speed is calculated by this. So all I want for this one is this 500 sometimes could be, let's say, a 400, sometimes could be a 600, where we get some variation to it. And this works in pretty much the same way that we have done earlier, except I'm going to create the variable at the beginning. And it's going to be onReadyVar. I'm going to call it obstacle speed. And I just need to type it properly. And again, I'm going to use randRange. And now we need to add a range. And let's say I'm going to give this 450 to 550. And if we try this now, it's probably very difficult to see, but I think this one is a bit faster. And yeah, this is definitely working. Okay, at this point, it was pretty much impossible to play this game. And this is something you can work on by yourself to make the game workable and just play around with these numbers and see which combination works best. With that, we have added some variation to our game. And that brings us to the final part of this tutorial series. And we don't even need to add that much more. All we have left to do is to add some detail in the foreground and some detail in the background. And if you have followed the tutorials so far, then you should actually know how to do this yourself. So I'm gonna make a slight bit of change in terms of how I organize these tutorials. So instead of going through it step by step, I just show you the finished code and explain how it works. But most of it you should already know. So I hope this is going to work. So in here, we are back in our main level scene. And it looks as we have left it just before, but there are a couple more things. And that is this part here, foreground starting position, and we have position nodes in there, or position 2D nodes in there. And then we have the same with background, and we have also position nodes in there. And I'm gonna explain what all of these do in just a second. But before I come to that, I have created two new scenes. The first one is called foreground detail, and it just has an animated sprite and a visibility notifier. And all this one does in the code, we pick a random animation from this animated sprite and we move it to the left on every frame. And once it leaves the screen, then we delete the entire scene. And the background details function in exactly the same way. Except here I added one small thing, that the scaling of all of these was too large. So these are the background details. So we have balloon 1, balloon 2, and the broom. All of these were too large in the beginning, so I scaled them down, and to add a bit of variation, the scale can be between 0.2 and 0.4. So these two scenes are basically identical in terms of how they function compared to the obstacle scene. Here's the one thing that has actually changed this new stuff. What I've effectively done, I've created a background timer and a foreground timer in our main level scene. And the background timer starts every 3 seconds and the foreground timer every 1 second. And once they start, they send a signal to our main scene. So these two. And in them, I create an instance of the particular scene, just as we have done before. The one thing that's really different now is this line here, which does get quite long, but it's actually quite simple. So what I've done here is in this foreground position, there are position 2D nodes. And position 2D nodes are actually really simple. All they do is that they store a position, and then they can later store this position to do anything you want with them, really. But in my case, I'm using them as a start position for either the foreground or for the background details. And how that's going to work is that I first get all the children of either the foreground, so all of this, or of the background, so all of this. And this just gives me an array of different nodes. Now I want to pick one of these nodes, and this happens in this list. And if you look closely, this is actually really similar to how we have organized, for example, the obstacle node. It works like this. This is basically the same principle. We just pick one item from the list with indexing. And this is the same principle here. Instead that I use the length of a certain array, this time I get the number of children from this particular node. And once that's done, I just get the position of the one node that I have picked from all of this. And with all of that one done, this should be the finished game. And if I run it now, let me start playing the sound. And all of this should be working now. And we can jump, and we have the details. And yeah, this is working. And it looks quite nice. There are a couple of things you could still work on, like the speed of these, and there we can see this doesn't exactly work. So there are a couple of small details left, but this is mostly just adjustment. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial series, and I'll be seeing you around.